Welcome to the John Freakin' Muir Pod. Lace up those boots and sling on the pack for a romp through trails, short and long. With your host and Renaissance man, Doc. It's time to embrace the suck.
Welcome back to another week on the trail, dirtbags and hiker trash. I'm Doc, and this is the John Freakin' Muir Pod. Let's start off with a reminder. If you are enjoying the podcast, take just a minute, help us out. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And if you're not enjoying the pod, well, just go ahead and keep that to yourself. All right. I'm excited to welcome back to the podcast Derick Lugo, who is fresh off his hike of the Continental Divide Trail. How's it going, Derick?
It's going, man. Feeling good. How are you?
Good. Thank you. Have you fully recovered?
I'm getting there. I would say the first 2-3 weeks, I felt so weird. It was like, I would get up early and I'm like, I should do 20, 25 miles. And I didn't have to. And I was like, what am I going to do with myself now?
There is definitely a readjustment period, isn't there?
There is, because also I'm not surrounded with people that know about thru hiking or know what I've been up to. You know, like normally I'm surrounded by thru hikers and we're doing the same thing and we're like, all right, let's do this. People don't know or understand. And this time around, it's a bit different than when I did the AT. I've heard of having that like withdrawal from the trail. And I was like, what are you talking about? I'm getting right back into things. And this time around, it really hit me hard. I think because it was such a challenging thru hike, and I had to adjust some of my ways of thru hiking. And this time around, it really left an imprint on me.
Yeah. Now, where are you calling in from? Are you back in New York?
No, I can't go back to New York. There's too many distractions. I want to, when I finished the AT, I didn't go back to New York because I wanted to write about it. So I ended up going to Pennsylvania for a while. So this time around, I'm in a state that I never thought I would ever be in. I'm in Alabama. I'm in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. So it's a college town, but I'm on like 10 acres of land and I'm in a cabin secluded. And I know no one, which is great. And it's pretty boring. So I can just focus on my writing.
Man, already I am intrigued. At the outset here. How did you end up in Tuscaloosa?
Oh man. So my ex-partner, she's from Alabama, from Birmingham. She lives in Birmingham now. And we have a mutual friend that lives in Tuscaloosa. And before I started my thru hike, I was hanging out here because I wasn't sure if I was going to thru hike or if I was going to, I was on the road and I wasn't sure if I was going to live the van life or whatever. I just wanted to do something different. And the person that owns the 10 acres, she's a free spirit. And she said, hang out here. We can build stuff. She had a house that needed some work, some very good hands-on carpentry work. So as I was trying to figure it out, I stayed here and helped her with her home and the land that she's on. And when I finished my thru hike, she said, hey, I know you need a place to write. If you want this cabin, you can stay as long as you want, continue doing what you did before you left. And it's like a work for stay. Like the trade-off is that I help her with her land and whatever project she's working on. And I can write until, I'm done. It's kind of like things just started falling into place, kind of like when I first wrote my book,
Right. So I am pretty excited right now because just to give our listeners some context, if they didn't listen to your first episode, they have no idea who Derick Lugo is.
Yeah.
He is a city boy from New York who had never done any hiking, but got into his mind that he wanted to hike the AT. And he showed up at Springer Mountain and hiked the AT in its entirety. His first ever overnight hike was on the AT. So that gives you some context. And then he got back from the AT and he wrote a book called The Unlikely Thru Hiker. and an incredible read. And so I'm excited right now because one of my questions for later on in the episode, but I'm going to go right now, is there a second book coming? Because if there is, I'm all in. I want to read this. I want to hear about your trip.
It's funny because when I started my Continental Divide Trail through hike this past April, people were asking me that, and I wouldn't confirm it because I wanted the through hike to be. I wanted everything to just fall into place. I didn't want people to be acting a different way if they thought or knew I was writing. So I said, I don't know, I'm always writing, but who knows? And as soon as I finished, I was like, you guys guessed it, I am writing a second book. So yes, I am writing a second memoir. It's kind of the same format where it's going to be a humorous read. It'll be a bit longer. One of the biggest complaints I got from my last book was that it was too short. People were like, we wanted more. And I did have more, but my publisher had me shorten it up a bit. This time around, I'm going to stick with every word I write. So it will be a lot bigger. So a lot more words.
Nice. Of all the complaints you could receive about a book, the complaint that it was not long enough, I guess that's a pretty good complaint to get.
Yeah, no, I get it. I totally get it. And I felt that as well. I learned from my first book. I think for a first book, it's done very well. And I'm very proud of that. But this time around, it's going to be totally different. I held back a little bit. I feel like in the first one, it doesn't seem like it, but this time around, when I say I held back, there was some things I wanted to say, but wasn't sure if I could say it. Nothing bad or anything, but I was just trying to be PC. This time around, I think I'm just going to let my emotions and everything I'm going to write it all down. And the entire book, most of the book, in fact, not entire, but most of the book is just my thoughts. It's like especially this one, because it was less people I was hiking with and it was more of my experience. So I have a very sarcastic mind. And it's going to just be me. You're going to follow me going through the experience again. And it should be like the first one.
Well, Derick, you should know I love your writing. I really enjoyed your book. And if I may be so bold, working title for you for this book, from the way you've described it and the way your approach is going to be, I think the working title should be Unfiltered.
Unfiltered. That's I like that. I do have a title in mind. Okay. But I don't want to share it yet.
No.
But Unfiltered. Yeah, I like it. I mean, it's going to be unfiltered.
Yeah. Well, I cannot wait. So just to familiarize some of our listeners, if they're not familiar with you, did you pick up a trail name when you were on the AT in your first through hike?
I did. Now I didn't name myself, so they called me Mr. Fabulous. And on the CDT, I kept it, but it evolved into just Fab. So it was different on the Appalachian Trail. When people ask you your trail name, they want to know where that came from. Like tell us the story, which I loved. But this time around, I felt like since most hikers on the CDT have already hiked a trail or two, and it's like you get a trail name and people aren't really asking you, they just accept it. And it turned out that people were just calling me Fab. They shortened Mr. Fabulous to Fab. So then when people asked me what my trail name was, I would say Fab. And when they would look at me kind of weird, I would go, it's short for Mr. Fabulous, but we don't need to be formal here, So now it's Fab. So, and long story short, the reason why I was called Mr. Fabulous was because I had zero experience in the outdoors. And at the time, I was like a metrosexual where I was like, I wanted to stay groomed and, I wanted to shave, keep my hair nice and twisted. I have locks. And I joked around about having a full length mirror that I would pull out and like make sure everything was fresh and clean and, looking fly. And someone was like, "Oh, you're Mr. Fabulous." And I was like, I didn't understand it at first. But then as I started using it, people were just enjoying it. They were laughing. They wanted to hear the story. And I felt like it ended up being more than just me being fabulous, but how people were feeling about just saying the trail name. And it's just grown from there. Now it's just Fab. I feel Fab is a little more controlled. It's more like, okay, it's not that spectacular, I should say.
I like the evolution to Fab because I'm a big proponent of, things can happen out on the trail, emergency situations. And if there's a tree falling and someone's trying to get your attention, I mean, Mr. Fabulous, that's a lot of syllables to get out. I mean, Fab, I mean, it's boom, you're there. So that's good.
The tree fell on him.
Exactly. And I love the idea. I love the concept of kind of a different culture on the CDT, different cultures on these long trails. Because you're right, most of the people who are out there hiking the CDT, it's not their first long trail. They've got some miles under their trail runners, and so maybe their attitude, their approach, their interactions are kind of flavored by that a bit. And so the fact that people didn't ask you for the backstory, they just kind of accepted it at carte blanche. I mean, that's interesting to me.
Yeah. And I understood it because when I would hear a trail name, when someone would give me their trail name, I would feel the same way. I'm like, all right, I accept it. That's your name. It's like in real life, if you tell me your name is Josh or Mike or whatever, I'm not going to say, why are you called Josh or why are you called Mike? It's like, it's my name. So it's kind of, at this point, when you're on the CDT, at this point, it's like, accept it,
Right. I also like the idea of your luxury item out on the trail being a full-length mirror that you just pull out of your backpack. That's awesome. Keeping it neat. Very good.
Got to keep it fresh.
All right. So Fab, you've been on the podcast before. I encourage anybody who's listening right now who is not familiar with your story to, when they're done with this episode, go back to that episode and take a listen. It was a great episode. In fact, I'm running some episodes this season, reruns, and I'm calling it Classic Doc. Instead of Classic Rock, it's Classic Doc. And I'm rerunning some of our more popular episodes, and I anticipate your episode rerunning again during season 5. So if you haven't had a chance to listen, please tune in, listen to that. It's a very enjoyable story. He's got really an interesting background, and the whole idea of a novice hiker never having hiked before, showing up and putting on his loaded pack for the first time on the AT. I mean, amazing.
It's nuts. I didn't even know if I liked hiking. That's how nutty it was. Like, you would think, like, at least go out for like a day hike or something, or like a weekend or something. No, I didn't have any time. It was like, I said I wanted to do the AT. I got my gear and I was out. I didn't have time to like practice, because I said, oh, maybe I'll wear the backpack in New York City, walk around Central Park. I didn't get a chance to even do that. It was like, I put the pack on at its full weight without the water when I left my apartment. And then I almost like fell with it. It was like, it was nutty. And I'm running to catch a cab because I'm running late to it's one of the chapters that I took out. But I'm running late, and I have to catch a train to Georgia. And I remember running with it, and I was like, oh my God, what is this? And I tried to get in the cab. It was heavy. Man, it felt like a bunch of bowling balls were in my pack, man.
Such a great story. In fact, I've got a recommendation for our listeners right now. This is the order in which you need to go. You're going to listen to this episode. You're going to go back. You're going to listen to the earlier episode. You're going to go online. You're going to order a copy of his book, The Unlikely Thru Hiker. You're going to read that, and then you're going to pre-order his next book, which working title is Unfiltered. We'll find out what the real title is when it comes out. But you have to experience Fab, or Mr. Fabulous. It's quite a journey. And
you know what? I've been doing this for a while now. I did the AT 10 years ago, and I didn't think I would ever thru hike ever again. But here you go. I did the second thru hike, and I'm a big storyteller. And the book, my stories, when I talk to you, it's people want to hear these stories, and I feel like with all my talks and I've grown as a speaker, as a writer, And I've learned that ultimately what I'm doing is, and I didn't start this thinking I would inspire anyone, but ultimately what I'm doing is inspiring, educating, and entertaining people, and I lean on those three things. If I can do that, then I'm doing the right thing. Because when I finished the AT, the outdoors changed my life, and I just couldn't stop sharing it. I just wanted people to know, like, hey, this is what happened to me. It's the reason why I wrote the book. It's like I couldn't hold it in. I was exploding. And for 10 years, it's been happening. And now I do it with different ways of doing it, writing, talks, whatever I can, podcasts. But it's all about, not just saying, hey, look, I did this and you should do it. It's like, no, I'm going to share my story. Hopefully you find it intriguing or entertaining or maybe inspiring. That way you can, step out of your comfort zone, do something out of the ordinary, live your dream. That's ultimately what I would love everyone to do.
Right. Now, at your family gatherings, is it like at my family gatherings? They see me coming and they know, oh no, here's the weird uncle, or who's going to talk about his latest hike, and they go the other direction. They see you coming, they head the other direction.
No, man. You know what? It's funny. My brother, who had, like me, never hiked before, didn't want me to do the AT. He was like, dude, you got to take a machete with you, man. Take a machete because it's dangerous in the South. And he was like, they come in small sizes. You can strap it to your chest and you go. And I was like, dude, I'm not doing that. He was like, you're not going to survive. And then I end up 6 months later, I'm done. And he's like, man, if you can do it, I can do it. And all of a sudden he wants to buy gear and he wants to do this and that. And we ended up doing a fun hike from New York City, Manhattan. We walked over to George Washington Bridge, and we did the long path trail up to Bear Mountain Harriman State Park. And it took us about 5 days. In fact, the ATC did a short film about it called Trail Brothers. And he got the bug. And he was just like, so what happened was I get back when I first leave, people don't even know what the AT is. They don't know how to say it. They're calling it something totally different, Appalachia or whatever. They don't even know. And when I come back, everyone's an expert. They're like, oh yeah, man, I can do that. And they're like bragging and like, Derick did the Appalachian Trail. One thing though, they would not call me Mr. Fabulous though. they were like, no, we ain't. Okay.
They draw the line there, huh?
No. But yeah, everyone was like, really, like, I had a friend, Nina, that she's in the book, and she was kind of like making fun of me for wanting to do this, my first thru hike. And she ended up when I came back, she got some trail runners and we went out for a hike, So again, I started inspiring people and I was like, whoa, this is powerful. And maybe it's because I don't look like a hiker. Even when I was out there, I didn't look like a hiker. And maybe they can relate to that, like not feeling like they're hikers. I guess I make it comfortable for them, and they're like, okay, maybe I can do this. Because I hear from people, they say, I can't find a trail. I don't know where the trailhead is, and I feel uncomfortable. I feel weird about like just walking around and trying to find something that may not even be there. And it's like, I get it. I get that. And I'm hoping that with my words, and when they see me or do talks or read my book, that they feel a little bit more comfortable and they want to do not necessarily do a thru hike, but maybe get out there and do a couple miles or something, or just do something outside of your house,
Right. Now, congratulations on being a bona fide influencer. I'm kind of a wannabe influencer. I'm hoping that people are inspired listening to the podcast, listening to the different guests I have on. But you, I mean, with your book and the story about your brother and getting him out there, I mean, that is just so rewarding. That is awesome.
Yeah, no, it's great, and it's again, it's something that I didn't expect, and my life just totally changed, and there was directions that I needed to take. Now I feel like I have a responsibility now. I can't just say, hey, I'm done and I'm going to go away. Like when I told people I was going to do the Continental Divide Trail, they were like, oh, there's a book coming. Every comment, every post I did, for 5 months, people were like, can't wait for the book. And I never even announced it. And it was like, I have this responsibility. I have to write a book. And I'm like, man, I better not mess this up.
That's a heavy weight on your shoulders there.
I know.
Yeah, a lot of pressure.
Man, way to put some pressure on a brother.
Yes. Hey, before we get to our first segment, a quick question. Did anybody recognize you out on the Continental Divide Trail? Did they say, oh, you're Mr. Fabulous?
It was interesting. I was hoping, yes, people did recognize me. I was hoping I can just be another thru hiker. And I thought if someone was going to recognize me, it was going to change the dynamic of our relationship, or, they would want to hike with me and this and that. You know what happened? I did get recognized, but a lot of times they wouldn't even say they recognized me. I remember I hit a summit and it was 4 people at the top, and we're joking, we're talking, and I'm like, hey, let's follow each other on Instagram, whatever. And one of them was like, oh, I already follow you. I know everything about you. And I'm like, oh, like, I just didn't want to say anything. I was like, oh, thank you for that. So what happened was they knew who I was, but they treated me like a thru hiker, like a regular thru hiker. They said, yeah, we know, like, we didn't want to, like, bombard you with questions and this and that. We know why you're out here, because we're out here for the same reason. And I got that respect. Now, if someone was like, hey, like, I didn't come out and say, I'm Mr. Fab, I wrote a book. I never did that. But if someone came up to me and was like, hey, man, I read your book, man, it was really great, then we have a conversation, and I'm cool with that. But I really was worried that would change my thru hike, that it was going to change, because I had such a great experience with the AT, and I was just worried that maybe I had a bit too much exposure. And luckily, thru hikers are out there to thru hike, man. They don't even care. Like, it could have been, I don't care. Jesus could have been hiking with us. They were like, come on, let's go. Like, it didn't matter. We just thru hiking. So yeah, I did get recognized, but it was cool, man. It was really, really cool.
Nice. They'd be saying, Jesus, how many more miles to the next pass?
Wasn't Jesus out there in the desert for like 40 days and 40 nights, or am I getting the days confused or something?
No,
I think he was out there for a while.
I bet he could do it. In his sandals, he'd be out there hiking. Yeah, absolutely.
Man, he was rocking it, man. When we hit the Gila section, where we had to cross the river and all that, he would have been rocking that. He would have just been right on the water. I would have been right behind him. I'm like, come on, Jesus, take me with you.
All right. Hey, Fab, quick reminder. We have a segment towards the end of the episode called the Pro Tip Insight of the Week. That's where I will turn to you and ask you to share some trail wisdom with our listeners to make their next outdoor experience even better. I know you're aware of that. Just a brief reminder. Of course, you are expected to drop trail wisdom throughout the episode, but you'll be on the hook for one at the end.
All right, cool.
All right.
No pressure.
The Must Bring Gear Review.
Hey, another feature we've been doing this season, Fab, is the Must Bring Gear Review, sponsored by the ultralight backpacking gear company 6 Moon Designs. And here's how it works. If you were to let a stranger pack your bag with pretty much generic gear for a multi-day hike, what is the one specific piece of gear you would insist on being packed? And if you got a specific brand for that particular piece of gear, even better. So, Fab, what is your must bring piece of gear out there?
Oh man, so we're not including the basics, right? Is this person packing the basics? See, I had to be that guy. Is he packing the basics? Does he know what to pack for a thru hiker? Or, like, I could say trekking poles, but he probably knows I need trekking poles.
Yeah. So the concept here is he's got a basic generic bag, and he is throwing in a tent. He's throwing in a sleeping pad. He's throwing in, whatever he thinks you might need. But if you have a specific piece of gear that you're like, hey, buddy, do not forget this. I need this. What do you think that would be?
If this may be like a luxury item, but many may think this, but it's not. I would say a composition book and a pen. I need that. I need it. Because I'm not just a thru hiker, I'm a writer. And every night after my thru hike, didn't matter, after my day of hiking, it didn't matter how tired I was, I would write how many miles I did, where I'm at, the weather, the time, And then just what happened that day, I needed to put that down on paper. I had video notes. I had scrap paper where I did notes, but to write it down on a notebook and have a pen, obviously can't do anything without a pen. I would say I would need those two items.
I think that is such great advice, because especially on a hike that's, potentially 3,000 miles long or 3,100 miles long, there's a lot of days in there. And, if you don't write stuff down, if you don't write down your specifics each night, there's no way you can remember everything. And this allows you to go back and kind of reflect and remember what exactly transpired on that hike.
Also, this time around, when I did the AT, I didn't know I was going to write about my adventure. I decided halfway through it that I was going to write about. But luckily, I had the journal already, and I've had a journal since in my early 20s. So that was the easy thing to have. It wasn't like I had to change anything. This time around, I knew that I was going to write about it. So my journal from the jump was very detailed. So I had the day, what day, not just the date, but what day, like day 3, day 4, day 5, the weather, where I was, like all these little details, how many miles I did, what mile I was on, all the things. So when I start writing, I'll have that. I can go back. I start writing off the top of my head, and then I'll go back to like my journal, my photos, videos, all those things to just kind of fill in the blank. But that journal, this one more importantly than ever, like I make sure that if I went into town, that journal was somewhere safe. Either it was on me, or if I left it, I wouldn't even leave it at a hostel, because it was my life. It was, this is what I'm, before I was like, yeah, I'll jot down, my adventure for myself, but this time it's not for me. And another big difference, I'm going to tell you now, because one of the things is like, what's the one question, you didn't ask me, or that I should have asked, you should have asked me. And I would say, that my first through hike, was for myself. Okay. And this one, I did it for others. I did it to educate others, hopefully inspire and to entertain, like I said earlier. So I had a responsibility, and that notebook was a big part of it. And if I lost that, I would have lost a lot of great information for everyone.
Highly important. So important to flesh out the details in your upcoming book, now titled Unfiltered and Detailed. Fab, Unfiltered and Detailed. It's getting longer. I don't know. That's awesome. But again, it's a great tip for anybody, even if you're not an author. If you just want to remember all of the glorious details that happen day by day on a multi-day adventure, take a journal, jot notes in your iPhone, do something to remember exactly what happened, because, especially on a long hike, things can kind of melt together.
Mm-hmm. True. Especially if you've done more than one.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
It's the hiking poll.
All right, Fab. Now, we did the hiking poll last time with you, and in that hiking poll, it was 7 questions about hiking. But because we've already done the hiking poll with you, with my repeat customers here on the podcast, I like to change things up with the hiking poll the second time around. So we're not going to be talking about hiking stuff at all. These are 7 questions about some of the big issues in our society. These are questions we could probably spend an entire episode on, or maybe even a season for the podcast, right? So I want to get your take on these and see what side of the fence you fall on. Are you nervous about this?
A little bit. Hope we don't get political.
No politics okay, here.
Good.
Don't worry about that. Well, I don't know. I mean, you'll tell by the first question here. It could be political or not. We'll see. All right. So first question here, and this is going to help me rate you on a sanity scale.
Okay.
One is completely insane, and 100 is completely sane. There's an automatic 20-point deduction for anybody who's done a long trail. So the highest score you can get tonight is 80. I don't want that to be disappointing to you, but that's just a fact of life. And if I were to ask your friends and family, Fab, what kind of score they would give you on the sanity scale, where do you think they'd rate you?
Wow. It would be low. Low is insane, or high is insane.
Low is insane.
Yeah,
are you south of the 50 mark, or are you above the 50? You're south.
I'm south. Yeah, I'm south of the 50.
Well, you're in Alabama, so you're south. Okay. All right. Question number 1. Could be political, could be not. People take a stand on this hill. First question is, does pineapple belong on pizza?
Oh, goodness. I would say, I know it people dig it. I'm gonna say, gosh, that's a hard one already. Because
I'll tell you right now, before you answer, Fab, I'll tell you right now, this is the longest anybody has taken to answer this question.
Really?
You've already set a record.
I'm from New York City, man, and we don't really do pineapple, so I'm gonna say no. Because I'm from New York, but I do know that people do have pineapple on their pizza. But I'm gonna say, as a New Yorker, no.
Okay, all right. Took a firm stand on that. We got there eventually. I mean, you did a lot of thinking about that. I want your honest reaction. I don't want you to tell me what you think I want to hear. I don't want to hear what society wants to hear. I want to know what Fab has to say on this.
Okay.
All right. And I'll just let you know on a little secret here. Before we started the interview tonight, I choked down a piece of Hawaiian pizza. I had some pineapple on my pizza, which leads me to the corollary question, which is not part of the hiking poll, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Do you drink beer or wine with your pizza, or neither?
I would do beer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought you were going to ask me, do I drink beer or wine? I would have been like, I drink both.
Yeah. Do you prefer? Okay, let's ask that too. I mean, you prefer beer or wine? Which
when I thru hike, nothing but beer.
Okay.
But when I'm because I'm burning calories, I'm burning I'm not going to gain any weight from it. But and I was living in Asheville, and surrounded by breweries in New York City, and I still love beer, but I do wine now because I don't want a beer gut.
There you go. He's got a glass of wine in front of him. Now let's drill down a little further. This is not part of the hiking poll. These are just ancillary questions that may come up. If you're drinking beer, what is your preferred style of beer?
IPAs.
Oh, good. Yeah. Me too. Mm-hmm. Me too. Hey, you ever tried Space Dust?
Mm-mm.
It's a Legion Brewing. I think it's based in Seattle.
Okay.
And you can find it here on the West Coast, and they have an IPA called Space Dust. That's my preferred type of IPA. It's pretty good.
Okay. All right. Have to try it. Space Dust.
Give that.
Will it get me high? What is Space Dust?
It's like 9.2 ABV.
Oof.
Yeah. And in terms of wine, I saw you drinking a red there. What is your preferred type of wine?
Pinot Noir.
Oh, Pinot guy. Okay.
Yes, without a doubt. Pinot Noir from Oregon.
Now, see, you had no hesitation on that. You got to the Pinot answer a lot quicker than you did the Hawaiian pizza. All right, that's question 1. Question 2. Big question. One of the big issues in society. Do you roll your toilet paper over or under?
Over.
Without hesitation.
Over. Under, that drives me insane. When I was dating someone, she liked it under, and I was like, I can't. It drives me insane. Why would you? I feel like I don't know. I just feel like it's hitting the wall, and like I can't get it sometimes. And if it's hanging there, it's perfect. It's just like ready to go, Mm-hmm. I want to in and out. I don't want to spend time sitting there and trying to fit in and out.
That's right. And did she have a cat? Was she a cat owner?
Well, we were both. In fact, I have the cat and the dog with me right now, but yes. And the cat, I know you're going to ask, does the cat kind of like hit the, right. She did it maybe once, but no, she doesn't. Cats love doing it.
That was not the reason that she wanted the toilet paper under. She just preferred it that way.
Yeah, she just liked it that way. I mean, even before we had the cat, she was doing it that way. So,
Are you still with her?
no,
Okay,
because
good.
of that.
That's a big warning sign. I was gonna let you know, hey, big red flag right there.
Oh yeah, that was one of many.
And you came out of the relationship with the cat and the dog.
No, I don't. No, she lives in Birmingham now, so it's about 45 minutes away to an hour, and she's out of town, so I get to have the pets.
Oh,
so we got.
nice.
She has custody, but I get to see them a lot. So
okay, all right, got it. Question number 3. Now, you being an author, I think you should probably take a strong stand on this one way or the other. Do you use the Oxford comma?
yes, I had to think about that. Yes.
For our listeners out there, the Oxford comma is the second comma in a simple series. So if you say the flag is red, white, and blue, there would be a comma after red. There would be a comma after white before the and. That is the Oxford comma. Some people say that you don't need the Oxford comma. You have the and separating the last 2 items in the series. You say that the Oxford comma is required.
Yes, I do it. I think because the program I use will autocorrect me. So for years it was autocorrecting me, and I was like, okay, this is the way it's supposed to be done. So yes, I use it.
Okay, good answer. Good answer. When we get rid of the Oxford comma, then society just completely starts to break down.
Yes.
yeah, it's all downhill. Question number 4. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Are you asking a vegan this? Come on, man. Asking a vegan this? I don't care if it's a sandwich or not. I would say no. I would say it's not a sandwich. But I don't care if I get this one wrong because I'm a vegan.
What's it like being a vegan out on the trail? I mean, what are you eating?
Easy, man. It's not as hard as like people think it is. Like ramen noodles is vegan, oatmeal is vegan, peanut butter is vegan. The hardest thing to find that wasn't vegan was energy bars, because when I was on the AT, I wasn't a vegan, and I had Snickers, and I would love me some Snickers. This time around is a little bit trickier, but other than that, I even had pizza without cheese. That's vegan. It's not really that hard to be a vegan on the trail. And I did it completely. And I wanted to show people that you could do that, because I've heard stories of people starting a through hike as a vegan, and they did, when they finished it, or even if they didn't finish it, they weren't vegans anymore, or they weren't a vegan when they were on the trail. And I'm like, I'm gonna prove that you can do this. And it wasn't as hard. And I was in like, middle America, where you would think that no, there was towns that I was surprised I had, like, they had veggie burgers or like vegan cheese. And I was like, where am I? This is awesome. So it was not as hard as you.
I've heard that some vegans disappear in middle America. It's kind of sketchy out there.
They die of starvation.
Yeah, could be. All right, question 5: Netflix or YouTube?
Netflix, without a doubt, and Hulu and Amazon Prime Video.
Right, yeah. So not user generated content, but professionally generated content. Do you have a favorite series on any one of those streaming platforms? What are you watching these days?
I'm finishing up S5E3. What's the other one? Handmaid's Tale. I'm watching that because my partner at the time was watching. I was like, oh, this is like kind of dark. The Walking Dead. Which I'm way behind on a lot of these things because I've been gone for like 5 months. So, Better Call Saul I was watching. I think the last season just finished. So I don't even know what happened. Is that your show?
Oh, Better Call Saul. If anybody asks me what is the best series ever made, it's Better Call Saul. Better Call Saul, unpopular opinion, is better than Breaking Bad. It is fantastic.
I would agree. The reason why is because I feel like Breaking Bad set up these characters that come back and you're like, oh, look who it is. And they make them even better. So you watched the last season?
I did. It is so good. So I'm not gonna ruin it for you, but I will say that there is an added experience for me. I have discovered the companion podcasts to different series that I watch. And so I'll watch an episode and then I'll turn into the podcast. It really does like a deep dive analysis into the episode. And it is just so good.
Oh, I have another one. Yellowstone.
Yeah. Yes.
Yellowstone. Now check this out. When I was in Montana, I got picked up by Obos was one of my big supporters of this thru hike. And they picked me up and they drove me to Bozeman. And as we were getting to Bozeman, we saw, we were at the set of one of the sets of Yellowstone. And I was like, we got to pull over. We pulled over. The guy that was driving had binoculars. And I was like, what? So I got to see like a scene of, I don't know if it's this season or next season, but I was so giddy, man. And I'm also a big fan of Montana because I'm a fan of Clint Eastwood, and I dated this one girl that said that he would, when he was doing his movies, he would actually rent property, and he would hire locals to be in his movies. So there's a scene that she was in when she was a toddler, where there was these gangsters coming into town, and they were raising heck and all that. And the mom picks up her daughter, and they run off, and the little girl is, my girlfriend at the time. But she said that Clint Eastwood treated the locals so well in Montana. Montana is known for a lot of like Westerns and stuff like that. And now Yellowstone and all the spinoffs and all that. So yeah, Yellowstone is pretty good.
So cool. We loved Yellowstone. I'll tell you that I loved 1883 even better.
Yeah, that's what everyone was saying. I saw the first episodes, but then you have to have, what is it, Paramount or something? What is it? What's it on now?
Paramount Plus, I think, or something like that. Yeah.
Oh, you froze. Did I freeze or did you freeze?
No, you're good. You're all good. Just keep talking. It'll all come through.
I hope you have a good editor.
Yeah, that would be me. I'll edit this out. That's okay. Yeah, Yellowstone. I mean, 1883, excellent series. Really loved it. And I you have to get it on Paramount Plus or something.
Yes. I saw the first 3 episodes. It was free on something, and I loved it. And then now they're doing another spinoff where it's in the 1900s or something. So that's pretty cool. Great show.
Okay. Hey, back to the hiking pole. Question number 6: the better superpower, invisibility or flying?
I've always wanted to fly, dude. I'm going to say flying, dude. I was hoping you were going to say flying because I would love to be invisible, but I mean, what can you do with that unless you're a thief or something? Like, I want to fly, just like see everything from up above, man. And I'm assuming that if you can fly, you're flying fast. Like, you can decide how fast you can fly. So you can probably fly around the world in no time. So I'm adding the speed to that one. But yeah, I would love to fly.
I may have to put a qualifier on that next time. Invisibility or flying at 1 mile per hour?
No, that's not flying. That's like just floating. I'd rather be invisible if that's the case. Can you be invisible and be fast?
I don't know. Question number 7, last question. Help me determine your level of sanity here. If you had the chance to get into a time machine that only went 100 years in the future or 100 years in the past, which direction would you pick?
Ooh, that's a really good one.
It's a tough one.
100 years in the future or in the past? I would say the future, because, if I want to know about the past, history, there's so many ways I can find out about history. I would say the future, because first of all, I want to know how well my books did 100 years from now. And also, yeah, man, I mean, I just want to see where this planet is in 100 years.
See what Wikipedia has to say about Derick Lugo.
Exactly.
All right. Hey, let me put this through the algorithm here. We've got to carry the 2 and divide
that
by
first
root.
one got me.
We're going to divide by root 3. We're going to multiply by pi. And we're going to adjust for the temperature in the San Juans on the CDT, and I come up with a score here of Fab. I come up with a score of 64. 64. I'm surprised. I'm surprised because I thought it'd be a little bit lower than that.
Okay, well, it's passing. I passed, right?
Passed, absolutely.
Yeah. It's higher than what my family would think. So my family and friends. So.
All right. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to do a little review of hiking the AT in your book. And then we're going to get into your latest adventure out on the CDT and hear some stories. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. And welcome back. We're talking to Derick Lugo, thru hiker and author of the Unlikely Thru Hiker, about his trip on the AT, and also known as Mr. Fabulous, or now more recently just Fab. So Fab, remind all of our folks out there who are listening in, tell us about just a brief synopsis of the AT and then the subsequent book that came from that experience.
So the AT, being from New York City with zero experience of the AT, the way I found out about it, like many other thru hikers, was the book A Walk in the Woods. During that time, even now, I'm a big reader, and someone handed this book to me and said, "Hey, read this." They didn't say anything about it being about the AT, but they said it was a really funny book. I read it; it was hilarious. But the one thing that stuck in my mind was this hard trail called the Appalachian Trail. All I knew that it went from Georgia to Maine, 14 states, and it was something that I wanted to do. I didn't know what it would entail, I just knew whatever I had in my backpack was how I was going to live for 6 months. And it was funny because when I got to the trail, when I got to Springer Mountain, I got to the first shelter. Everything that was in my pack, I didn't know how to use. I didn't know how to use the filter, didn't know how to pitch my tent, didn't know how to, use the mini stove, all the things that people would know how to do before they would do a thru hike, like they would know months or years. I was learning that day. In fact, there's a chapter in the book called Lessons at Springer Mountain. And that was when all the things that I should have learned, I learned that day. The one thing I will say about the AT was that there was no judgment out there from other thru hikers. When they found out I didn't know anything about thru hiking, they just helped me along. I think if it wasn't for the outdoor community, for the hiking community, I wouldn't have finished it. If it wasn't for trail angels, and I think more so than any other trail, the AT offers a lot of assistance with shelters, with hostels, a lot of trail angels. And your audience probably know about trail angels, but these are people that help hikers along the way, whether it's a ride or, leave food by the trailhead. Trail Magic was one of the most amazing things that helped me along. And coming from a New Yorker, I was like, what is this thing people are giving me? Why would they do that? I had that suspicious mind, man. And slowly but surely, the AT and the outdoor community changed that mindset. And so when I finished the AT, it sparked something in me. It lit a fire. I had this burning fire sensation to share my story, not necessarily just my story, but what I experienced. I don't want to say hey, this is all about me. No, the book is about what I was going through. And one of the biggest compliments that I love that people share with me after reading my book is that it felt like they were hiking with me. And that's what I wanted. I wanted people not to see a guy doing the thing, but feel like they were doing it also. And so I went at it. I put all my emotions into the book. It took me 6 months to thru hike the AT, but I felt like I was reliving it in thru hiking for the next year and a half, 2 years, and for years to come when I'm doing my talks. So it never left me. Unlike other thru hikers where they finish their thru hike and they may just continue on with whatever else they do in their life, I kept it going. It was kind of being like going to the military and then making it into your life. That's your career now, and you're in the military for 25 years, which I did meet someone not too long ago that was in the military for about 25 years. And I thought that was amazing. You make it into a career. And that's what I've done. I've taken a thru hike and made it into a career. And 10 years later, I decided to do the Continental Divide Trail, but that wasn't necessarily my decision. Like, I didn't just say, hey, I'm going to do the CDT, like I said about the Appalachian Trail. I think because people have seen me do talks, and I'm very grateful for this. And I say this in the most humblest way I can, but people really wanted me to write another book, and they wanted it to be another thru hiking book. And I thought about it really hard, and I said I could be writing about anything else. But I felt like right now, where I was at, it's been 10 years, it would have changed. It's funny because when I told people I was going to do the AT, they were like, oh, man, don't do it. You're never going to survive. This time around, when I told people I was going to do the CDT, family and friends, they were like, oh, you did it. You thru hiked already. You got this. I'm like, no, you can't tell me I'm going to do it. No, you're supposed to say I can't. I need that, I need that, like, I need you to have like doubts about me finishing it, because that way I can like think about that and like kind of go. It's like this. I heard LeBron James say this, the basketball player. He said when he goes to an away game and he goes to the stadium, he looks around to see if like he has a lot of people that love him, but he wants to find someone that hates him. And he's like, he wants someone that's yelling at him and saying, boo, you suck. And once he finds him, he's like, okay, it's on. And that's what I was looking for. I was looking for someone to say I couldn't do it. That way I can have that drive to actually do it. And no, people were like, you got this. You got this. Like, oh, man.
You know what that is? Man. You know what that is, Fab? That's the chip on the shoulder syndrome, right? Having a chip on your shoulder. You know who's made a career out of that? Tom Brady. Tom Brady was drafted in like he's drafted 199 during his draft class, and nobody thought he'd ever make it. And he has taken that moment of being drafted number 199 and just had that chip on his shoulder the entire time.
Yeah, yes, that's exactly what it is. And but going into this second thru hike, I knew it's been 10 years, man. I did day hikes, but I wasn't thru hiking, and I'm hiking in the desert. Like, you start in the desert. I ain't never hiked in the desert before, and it was so different than the AT. It was like you start in the desert, and all of a sudden after the desert, you're crossing 200, and I counted them, 249 river crossings. You go from desert to river crossings, and then you're climbing. You go to Colorado, and you're climbing up to like, 13,000 feet, 14, the elevation gets higher and higher, and you're trying to escape storms. And like, I had the hiking experience, the thru hiking experience, but nothing can prepare you for the Continental Divide Trail. And I was really grateful for that, because I was learning on the fly, and it wasn't one of those things where I walked in, I was like, yeah, I wrote a book and I got this, no, and none of that like crossed my mind. I never thought about like, I have the experience, I have that. No, it was just like, man, I could die out here. I'm struggling.
Let me ask you that question. Why the CDT as hike number 2? Why not the PCT? I talked to Ginger Balls, who's a triple crowner, and he started off with the AT, and he did the PCT after, and then he did the CDT. And he said that if he had done the CDT first, he would have said, this is not for me. This is just crazy.
So I love, that's a great question. And that's the order you're supposed to do it in: the AT, the PCT, and the CDT, because the CDT is the hardest one to do. And we were talking about this earlier before we started recording, that I could see why people end with the CDT, because when you're done, you're like, I ain't thru hiking anymore. I'm done. This is it. And it's funny because just about everyone that was through hiking, when we were hitting the last 100 miles, people were like, yeah, I'm done. Like, I can't wait for this to be over. I'm done. And I remember thinking, yeah, it's time for me to finish, but I wasn't like eager to get off the trail. Like I wanted to embrace and take everything in the last week, the last few weeks. But I remember back to you to answer your question. The reason why I picked the CDT was that I had a relationship. I've been building relationships with outdoor organizations. When I say gear brands, like I mean like relationships with them, not people that reach out to me and say, hey, can you promote whatever I have and we'll give you free gear. Like ambassadorship, like I know people do it, and some people, it's great that they get free gear, but I don't necessarily need anyone to give me anything free. But if I do get free stuff, I give it to my audience. I do a lot of giveaways. What I wanted to do was build relationships with these organizations and see if they're on the same mindset as myself, where we're sharing the outdoors, and we want more people that don't know much about the outdoors to learn about it and get out there. And that's my goal. I mean, I met so many organizations and companies that are thinking the same way. So one of them is Obos. They're a shoe brand, and I started building a relationship with them, and their beliefs are very close to what I believe in. And I said, we talked about doing another thru hike. And I said, well, if you guys want me to do a thru hike and we can work something where we're sharing about thru hiking with our audience, let's do the PCT. And they were like, well, it would be really cool if you did the CDT, because their company is right off of the Continental Divide Trails, and they have a relationship with the CDTC, which is the organization that works on the Continental Divide Trail. And they said, if you do the CDT, then we can do a lot more as far as sharing the outdoors and all that. And I thought for a second, I was like, man, I haven't thru hiked in 10 years. And I'm going to jump from like not thru hiking to hitting the hardest trail out there. And I agreed to it. I agreed to do the CDT, and I had some support. When I say support, I mean, I had people helping me send me food, because I didn't have any mail drops when I did the AT. I think I had one, and it was like halfway through. It was at Harper's Ferry. This time around, I needed more, especially as a vegan. So yeah, that was the main reason why I decided to do the CDT, was because of the company that I was working with, and they were going to support my thru hike. And it was just easier for us to do that.
That's fantastic. And, I want to pick up on something you said there and put my own take on it, that the outdoors are for everybody. Yeah. They're for everybody.
Yeah.
And, what do we have to do to diversify the folks out there on the trail? I've been trying to do my part here. I'm talking to all kinds of folks out there on the trails. I've talked to people of color out on the trail. I've talked to transgender folks out on the trail. I've talked to women out on the trail. I mean, what is it going to take to make sure everybody is aware that the outdoors is for everybody?
Keep doing what you're doing, brother. Keep doing what you're doing, because that's exactly what I do. And people need to see different types of people on the trail, because eventually you're going to talk to someone that looks like this person. You're going to talk to someone, and all of a sudden, people are, not all of a sudden, I shouldn't say that, but gradually, and I see it happening. People are going to feel a bit more comfortable about going out there. I'm hoping I'm a little part of that, where when people see me, and I try to do a lot of talks at schools, because the kids are like, a lot of times they don't know about through hiking. They don't know about hiking the AT or, you know, the PCT or any trail. And they're very intrigued. Their minds are just so curious about what's going on. I remember doing a talk last year, and I'm actually going to go to that school again next month. And I did a talk for these 7th graders, and it was their first time at the auditorium since, you know, because of, you know, the craziness we've been going through. Right. And they were just happy that they were leaving a class and they were hitting the auditorium, but they had no idea what I was going to talk about. It's like, this dude, we don't know what he's talking, but they just were excited to be there. And I'm talking, I share my story. These are 7th graders. And all of a sudden I can see them just like, what? And if they're laughing, and I try to make my talks and everything I do entertaining. And then I'll have a Q&A. Man, these kids were asking me so many questions. It was like, I loved it. And that said, I talked to high school kids, and they're like, just because when you're in middle, I realize that when you're in middle school, you're not that far away from elementary school, grade school. So like, you're still learning to be like an adult. When you're in high school, you're like too cool to laugh or to say anything. So middle school is great because they're like, you know, they're still curious. And I remember when I finished the talk, I love sharing this story. When I finished the talk, I was walking to my car, and the student comes to me and she's like, oh my God, can you sign this for me? She gives me something to sign, right? And 2 of her friends come, and one of them goes, hey, we want to apologize for our 7th grade class because we thought you were going to be boring. And I was like, oh, that's perfect. That's like the best compliment. I don't care. Like, and they were like, we loved your talk, this and that. And they were like, they were apologizing for like the beginning of it. And I didn't even notice. I just knew that like, they didn't know who I was, and I had to like show them that what I'm up to. So yeah, man, it's about just having people like me doing these talks. I have a podcast called Unlikely Stories Podcast, and I do exactly what you're doing. You know, like I'm learning from you guys. I've been doing this for a while, and I spoke to, you know, the first Black person to hike Mount Everest, to summit, not just hike, but summit Mount Everest. I spoke to a drag queen. You know, I spoke to a female, one of the fastest females that hiked the AT. You know, like all these different types of people, because I'm a big believer that the outdoor community is made up of a bunch of different communities. So I wanted to do what you're doing, where I talk to different people and then someone's going to relate to one of the episodes that I'm doing. So yeah, just keep doing what you're doing. I continue doing what I can do and all I'm doing is sharing my story, but letting people know that, hey, even this New Yorker, an adult that had no experience, is out there, not only did 1 through hike, but did 2 through hikes, and is also doing other through hikes. Like I'm doing the long trail next year. You know, it's shorter, but it's still a through hike, you know? So yeah. And you don't necessarily need to do a through hike. When people come up to me and say, hey, you know, I know you've done like 2,200 miles and now like 5,000 miles. But you know, I just did 3 miles, and I was like, get rid of the jest, you know, like you were out there doing the outdoors, doing what I want everyone to do. It doesn't matter how many miles you do, just get out there. It's very healing. It's very refreshing. It's very good for your mind. Like so many good things come out of it.
That's incredible. I'm so happy that you have a podcast. What a great spokesman for the outdoors. So keep doing what you're doing. You
need to have I love it so much, man. Just like you love what you're doing, man. It's like, you got to have a passion for it. You know, you got to love what you're doing. Because if you love what you're doing, you never work a day in your life. You know that, right? So this is how I spend every day, whatever. And I do it in a bunch of different ways, whether it's through social media, through my writing, through talks, through talking to you, having a conversation with you. I love doing this, you know, and when you have people that love what they're doing, it shows. It's like, and I see this in talks, like if you see someone doing a talk and they're not confident or they don't feel good about what they're talking about, you're going to be like, what is this? But if you see someone that's super confident and they're like doing their thing and they know what they're talking about, you're going to be engaged in that. And that's how I feel right now, man. I can talk about this all day long, man.
Awesome. Hey, are you familiar, Fab, with Type 2 fun?
Yes, I actually did a post on that today about Type 2 fun.
Nice. Do you have any Type 2 fun stories from the CDT you want to share with us?
I did it. Was it today or yesterday? Yesterday, I did a Type 2 where, so uh, I was hiking up. I was hiking a 14er. It was Gray's Peak. 14er is like when you hit the highest peak of that mountain is 14,000 feet in elevation. Okay, and I was hiking. It was a struggle, man. And also, I get vertigo, and it was just a struggle. I couldn't get to the top, and as I'm getting to the top, this cloud is just it's just starting to come closer and closer. And the thing about hiking in Colorado is that you need to hit that summit early. Like I learned this really fast that unlike the AT where I left camp 2 hours after everyone else, I had to leave super early, like 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, so I could hit summit by before lunch, and then head down before thunder and lightning and hail starts hitting you in the head. And I had already a week before that I got caught in a storm, and that was a nightmare. That was not even any type fun at all. I can't even say that was fun now. But this one, it was my second 14er. And I remember climbing. I was climbing, and I got to the top. And I took a photo. There was a rock that said Gray's Peak, and it said 14,000 whatever number feet of elevation. And I look behind me, and there, you got to check my Instagram because it's in my Instagram, like yesterday's post. There's a big cloud just getting closer and closer. My direction, not just going to the side, not to the side, but right behind me, like so it could follow me as I go down. I see that cloud and I book it, dude. When I say I book it, I ended up getting the beginnings of shin splints. And I'm just flying through. I'm jumping and it was rocky, these big rocks, and I'm running down. And I barely made it. Got to camp. My feet's throbbing. It was just like, I don't know how the Flintstones did it, but man, I felt like I was running barefoot, dude. It was hurting. And I remember thinking how scared I was. And the next few days, I couldn't stop sharing that story. And I was like, that was actually kind of like, it was like kind of a high, literally and mentally. It was like, it was a high, and it was like, that was kind of dynamite, man. For me to run from this storm and make it, it was like, yes, that's my type too, where, it wasn't fun when I was doing it. But then when I think back about it, I was like, yo, yeah, man, not many people can do that. And I did it. In fact, someone that was hiking that was maybe a few miles behind me, I heard that he started going up and turned back around because he wasn't going to make it. And I was so I timed it well where I was like, all right, I'm booking up there. And I just made it down. And I just love how the timing was perfect.
Racing the storm, that adrenaline going. I mean, that pumps you up.
Yeah, man. All I needed was some music playing in my ear, man. I would have just been some rock music.
So I know that it had been 10 years since your previous long trail hike of the AT, and you had some self-doubt going into this, and people saying, "Oh, you got this." I mean, that's not very helpful because that puts extra pressure on you because people are thinking, "Oh, this." There's no reason that you shouldn't be able to do this, but you know how difficult this is going to be. At what point in the CDT did you think, you know what, I think I've got this?
Ooh, good. I will say this. When I first started, I wasn't sure because my first day, I got heat sickness, and I was drinking enough water, but I guess I wasn't replacing my electrolytes and all that. I didn't eat. It's another thing when you're in the desert, you got to eat. You have to replace those electrolytes. I didn't do all those things, and I got really sick. I was thinking, man, this is going to be hard. But I never thought that I wasn't going to finish it. I always thought, like, no matter what happens, I'm going to finish it. But I wasn't sure how I was going to do it. I would say, man, it took a while. I would say even Colorado was rough. I would say when I finished Colorado was when I was like, okay, I got this. And I definitely knew I had it when, I would say after Yellowstone, which is like right before you hit Idaho. You have Idaho and you have Montana, the whole state of Montana. I knew once I hit Yellowstone, I was like, I got this. Because I had a date set and I was behind on it. I was like barely going to make it. And I said, after Yellowstone, I was like, I'm going to do some miles. And I started doing 20, 25, 30 a day, miles a day. And I was just doing it. I was doing 30 when I thought I couldn't even do 20 that day. And I was like, you know what? I got my hiking legs. This is my last month. If I'm not in shape to do this, I'm never going to be in shape. I've been out here for 4 months. I got this. So I would say when I hit Yellowstone, that was when it was like, it's on. I got this. And not just that I got this, but I knew exactly when I was going to finish, which I did. I ended up finishing earlier. I got to East Glacier, and I spent 2 zeros at the hostel because of weather. It started snowing, which was fine, and I was still ahead of schedule. But I finished on the day I said I was going to finish.
Fantastic. Did the CDT live up to the hype?
That and more, dude. That and more. It was the most challenging thing I've ever done in my entire life. And I got a question from one of my followers. They asked me which one, and I'm going to get this forever. Which one had the best view, the AT or the CDT? And I was like, man, I'm gonna piss off my AT peeps because they've been with me for 10 years. But I'm gonna have to say the CDT because of Colorado, because of the Gila section in New Mexico and Montana. Dude, I was seeing mountains I didn't know belonged on this planet. It was the most incredible thing I've ever seen because you're on top of mountains. You're on top of a mountain. You can see many mountains ahead of you for miles. On the AT, you could be on a summit, but you might be surrounded by trees. You know, there might be something blocking your view. There were a lot of beautiful views on the AT. Don't get me wrong. Vermont is one of my favorite states. The whites I loved. But I would say the CDT has something special, and there's a combination of things. It has the best of so many different trails. It's not easy, which I really adore that, because if it was easy, then everyone can do it. Finishing the CDT, I think, for me, I don't need to be a triple crowner. I don't. But telling people I did the AT and the CDT, I'm proud of that more so than, possibly being a triple crowner. That's a hard trail. And if you finish that trail, then you did something special.
All right. Now, I know you kind of mentioned it earlier. How did you feel towards the end of the trail? This being your second long trail, you've done the AT, now you're finishing up the CDT. What were the emotions running through you as you approached the finish?
It was different this time around. On the AT, I was a hot mess. I was crying. It was just a hot, buttery mess, man. I said I wouldn't ugly cry. I was like, man, I was ugly crying. And someone was doing a documentary, and they were recording, and I was like, oh man, everyone's gonna see this. On the CDT, I really was. It's hard to explain. I didn't want it to end because I wasn't sure how I felt about the CDT. I didn't cry. I didn't feel like everything happened to me and it's changed my life. I didn't feel that. I just knew that I did something special, and I didn't want it to, not that I didn't want it to end, but I wasn't ready for it to end during that time. So it didn't feel like I finished it. I was still in my head when I got picked up, and then I got a ride to Bozeman, Montana, and I hung out there for a week. And people were coming up to me that saw me, that been following me or saw me. I had stopped at Bozeman before that to do a talk. And they were like, yeah, you seem a little different. Because I was still in my head. I couldn't figure out what was happening. I would get up at night and I would look over and I thought I was still in my tent. You know, I couldn't put my body outside of the trail. I was still on the trail mentally. So this time around, there was a lot. The emotions were different, and I'm hoping I can put it in better words when I'm writing about it. And I still have to sit down and think about it. But yeah, it was. I didn't want to be done, you know. And when I say that, I don't mean like I wanted to continue hiking. I just didn't want the Mr. Fabulous that was out there through hiking to end, if that makes any sense. I wanted to continue being a through hiker, you know, not necessarily doing 20, 30 miles every day, but just wanted to still be a through hiker.
That makes complete sense, Fab. Complete sense. And the good news, I guess, is that if the AT was any indicator, and your book, The Unlikely Thru Hiker, you get to spend the next year and a half still on the trail.
Yes, that's exactly what's going to happen. That's exactly what's going to happen. It's a beautiful thing, man. It's a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful thing. Nice. Now, I know you mentioned that, you know, you don't feel like you need to do the PCT, but do you need to do the PCT?
I think for my audience, I do. I remember towards the end of my thru hike, I was like, I'm done. I'm not thru hiking anymore. This is a special trail. I don't need to do the PCT. And then when I finished it, and people were asking me, you know, when you're doing a PCT, and then having this relationship with certain outdoor organizations and all that, knowing that they trust in what I do. They trust in my words. They trust my writing words, my speaking words. They know I have something to share, or at least they hope that I can share my experience. I would say if the opportunity is right, if there's a story there, and I feel like I'm not doing it just for me, then I'm doing it for others, and others could benefit from it, I would say, yeah. It could. And I remember saying this when I started my thru hike. I said, if I'm going to do the PCT, it needs to happen in the next, I'm not waiting 10 years. It needs to happen in the next 2 years. Now I'm like, it doesn't need to happen that soon. I think if I can finish I have a lot of projects I'm working on, a lot. If I can finish those and the opportunity shows itself again, like if I find myself in the same situation I was in last year, where I wrote a book, all these other projects I was working on, I was just done, and I have this window, then I'll do it. Without a doubt, I would do it.
Hey, Fab, I'm going to tell you there's two reasons why you need to do the PCT. Reason number one, most important reason, is I live near the PCT. This will give me a chance to trail angel for you and meet you in person. So that's reason number one. That's the most important. The second reason is the word trilogy. You're an author. Right? Trilogy. And again, I'm going to humbly suggest, I've been working on titles as we've been going on here. I think book number 2 should be Unlikely and Unfiltered. Right? The Unlikely Thru Hiker, that's number 1. Unlikely and Unfiltered, book number 2. And then book number 3 would be The Unlikely Triple Crowner. Boom.
Look, man.
Mic drop.
You know what? I didn't think about it that way. When you put Unlikely and Unfiltered next to each other, I was like, wait a minute. There's a ring to that. There's something I like about that. So hey, you never know if it's unfiltered. The Unfiltered Thru Hiker.
Oh, hey, there you go. Nice.
I like it, man.
So you've got the long trail coming up next.
Yes, in either the end of August, beginning of September.
2023.
23. Yeah, I'm teaming up with the Green Mountain Club, and yeah, I'm gonna show people, educate people about that great state, Vermont, and that trail that just goes through the entire length of Vermont. So it's a beautiful state.
All right. Hey, Fab, you know where we are?
Planet Earth. We're on planet Earth.
That's correct. That's correct. You're not wrong. But in the episode,
The pro tip insight of the week.
that's right, Calf. We are at the pro tip insight of the week, that time of the episode where Fab gets to offer his a bit of trail wisdom to our listeners to make their next outdoor experience even better. So what do you have for us?
I always say this, and I want to change it up. I'm going to give you maybe two of them. So one is, if you hear my story, you hear anyone's story, and you're like, hey, I want to thru hike, or hey, I want to do, a long trail or whatever. First, find out if you like to hike, first find out what it's about. So start doing small, and I may have given this answer to you last time. So that's why I'm going to give you another one. But this is one I always like to drill and constantly tell people is that take baby steps. Don't jump in and think you can just do a thru hike. I saw many thru hikers or hikers attempt to do the CDT this year, and it was their first trail, and many of them either really struggled or didn't finish. I would say baby steps, do a weekend hike, do a day hike, find out if it's something you really want to do. Let's see. Another one is
that's kind of a do as I say, not as I do kind of trail advice, right?
That's true. But I will say that if I attempted to do what I did on the AT where on the CDT where I had no experience and jumped in and see if I liked it, I probably wouldn't have finished it. So there you have it. Okay. Also, go out there and enjoy yourself. I've saw so many hikers that on the CDT more than any trail were just storming through, and maybe that was their way of enjoying the trail. But I would say if you're going to go out there, it's not about the miles. It's not about like just saying, hey, I did this. I'm out there. I'm out here doing it. It's not about bragging rights. Just go out there and experience it. Take it all in. There was times where I went weeks without hiking, and I remember I was like, oh, I know what's missing. I need to go for a hike. And I would go for a hike, and I would feel like all the stress and whatever was going on during that time of my life just melt away. At least for the time being. Go out there, take it in, experience it. Don't think that you're gonna, every moment that you're out there, it doesn't need to be a grand hike. It doesn't need to be a grand trail. Just go out there and just take in the little things. And I promise you it would be a great experience.
Okay, fantastic advice. So there you have it. That's it. This episode is just about in the books. Hope our listeners enjoyed our time with one of the best humans on the planet. I want to thank him for joining us this week. Fab, how can our listeners keep up with you on social media, and where can they find updates on your latest adventures?
Yes, so Instagram is the place to find me. I'm constantly posting, doing reels, updates with my stories about, and I go through my writing process this time around, so you'll see every step. With my posts, you'll see what may be in the book. So I would say follow me there at Derick Lugo. That's DERICKLUGO. And I also have a page called the Unlikely Thru Hiker on Facebook. If you want to get a signed copy of the Unlikely Thru Hiker, you can go to my website at DerickLugo.com, or you can get it at any bookstore or Amazon or whatever, but you wouldn't get a signed copy. So it's my website.
All right. Remember to check out the pod on social media as well. We are on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Mr. Fabulous, you have a TikTok account yet?
I do. I'm not on it as much because I don't, I'm not here to perform for people. I'm here to just share stories. But I may start some of the reels that I do on Instagram. I may transfer it to, because it's easy to do that. So it's Derick Lugo at Derick Lugo. So
Okay, TikTok, it's a hot thing these days. I don't know.
the youngins be doing it.
Yeah, that's right, the youngins. And also, if you have comments or clip you want to share, you can send it to me at johnfreakinmuir@gmail.com.
The Adventure Media Recommendation.
All right, Fab, I'm also looking to you to share a recommendation for a book, movie, documentary, some kind of adventure media to keep our listeners connected to the trail, calling this our adventure media recommendation. What do you have for us? And we're already going to stipulate that the first thing they should be reading is the Unlikely Thru Hiker. But what else do we have?
One of my closest friends is J.R. Harris. He's about, I don't know, he's got to be like close to 80 now, but he is one of the only Black members of the Explorers Club. And he wrote a book called Way Out There. His name is J.R. Harris. And it's a great adventure. He talks about how, like, when I think he graduated from college, he decided he wanted to drive his car from New York City to Alaska because he wanted his car to be like furthest north in North America. And then he talks about all these other adventures that he's done. The guy is an explorer. He goes to, villages and learn languages. And like, he doesn't, he's not just, a hiker. Not that I'm just a hiker, but he does so many different things. When I grow up, I want to be like him. And we had a plan to do an expedition together last month, but that fell through. So hopefully we can do one soon. But yeah, he's my hero.
All right, J.R. Harris, Way Out There. I'm ordering a copy as soon as we get done here.
Awesome. Tell him I sent you.
Okay, will do.
The Adventure Media Recommendation.
No, we already did that one. Sorry, I got to edit that one out. Dang it. Okay, here we go.
What have we not asked you?
All right, and before we wrap things up, I've just got one more segment for you called "What Have I Not Asked You" that you're trying to tell us about. You already kind of jumped that segment earlier, but is there anything we left out, Derick?
Oh man, I mean we hit a lot of stuff, man, and that means you're doing your job. I can't think of anything that pops up. Yeah.
Okay.
I think we're good, man.
All right. Well, that is a wrap from the John Freaking Muir studio. Any shout outs to friends and family, Derick?
Shout out to all the Unlikely Thru Hikers, man. Listen to this podcast, listen to read about the outdoors. Yeah, man, shout out to them, and hopefully you can get out there and do your thing too.
All right. Hey, thank you for tuning in. Always remember, the trail is the trail. It doesn't care if you want to go downhill. It doesn't care if it's almost dark and you're looking for a campsite. It doesn't even care if you just finished racing the storm down the mountain. The trail is the trail. Embrace the suck.